also. So with the permission of the chair, we are starting this session. Good morning and warm welcome to all distinguished panelists, speakers and the invitees from the trade and industry for the webinar on understanding the impact of pandemic on retirement benefits plans and with a special focus on the national pension scheme. As you are aware, the purpose of this webinar is to encourage interaction of greater adoption NPS among corporate and individuals. The workshops aims to apprise the various beneficial aspects of the scheme and also to showcase the experience of the existing organizations who already enrolled in NPS schemes and also those organizations who would like to be part of these schemes. And it's well known fact that many corporates have already joined NPS. In fact, FICCI has also been part of the NPS also. And we have been promulgating these NPS schemes among our various counterparts and our affiliated bodies and chambers of commerce and also our members also. And we're really glad to have this session today on this awareness program. And we're extremely happy to welcome Mr. Supratim Bandyopadhyay, Chairman PFRDA, and also Mr. A.G. Das, Executive Director PFRDA from the PFRDA, the Government of India, and also other well-known speakers who would be speaking on the other subjects related to the sector retirement benefits planning by Ms. Preeti Chandrasekhar, India Business Leader, Health, Wealth and Fellow, and Mr. Sanil Nair, Senior Consultant, Mercer, and for the taxation implication due to the announcement in the extension of filing of IT returns by the IT department, Ms. Bahrur Kamdeen, Partner, Deloitte and Huskins and Tells LLP. So with this opening note, I would now request Sri Deepika Shivani, Co-Chair of FICCI Kerala State Council, to formally welcome our distinguished speakers and invitees and all the participants. Over to Sri Deepika Shivani.
A very good morning to one and all the dignitaries present today. A very warm welcome to all of you for the workshop on National Pension System. My special thanks to Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, that is the PFRDA, for supporting us and giving FICCI this opportunity to organize workshops on the National Pension System across the country. Like mentioned earlier, this is our second workshop in Cochin, and the response that we had for the first one was tremendous. The objective of the workshop today is to bring to you important and practical perspectives on the national pension system, and we propose to encourage discussion on some of the key aspects of the scheme. All of us present over here very much understand the importance of having a robust pension sector. Just to further emphasize on the importance, we may consider the fact that as of now, 10% of the global senior citizens reside in India. And with an increase in life expectancy, this number would double in 15 years from now. Also, presently, India's numerous pensions and related schemes, both mandatory and voluntary, cover only about a third of the labor force, and around only a quarter of the current elderly are accessing pensions. Therefore, it is imperative to bring about awareness regarding the existing pension schemes in the face of escalating living and healthcare costs to ensure a comfortable life later as time goes on. Growth of pension assets is also important for the economy so that they can be more active in the capital markets. We feel that in order to impart momentum to the growth of the pension sector, there is a need for clear communication to all the employers and employees on pension schemes and their benefits. There is a need that the pension plans should also be transparent and easy to understand. People should also be aware of the tax benefits associated with pension plans and especially the national pension system. Pension plans should also relate to the existing salary levels and must be able to sustain the cost of living post-retirement. Another aspect is that companies face the challenge of retaining the right people. The policies that companies have in place, keeping the employee interest in mind, are critical for making an organization employee-friendly and thereby retaining talent. The new pension system is one such tool that can be offered by the organizations to their employees as a part of their compensation policy. NPS, therefore, is a unique pension program, and all individuals and organizations should take benefit of this scheme. At today's webinar, we have with us very eminent panel who would be sharing their valuable insights on this important subject. Today's keynote address will be presented by Sri Suparatim Bandyopadhyay, Chairman PFRDA. So great to have you with us. Presentation on National Pension System NPS by Sri G. Das, Executive Director PFRDA. We have a session on retirement benefits planning by Ms. Preeti Chandrasekhar, India business leader, health and wealth, and fellow actuary in Mercer. And of course, Mr. Sanil Nair, senior consultant, Mercer. Ms. Burrows Kamdin, partner, Deloitte Haskins and Sells LLP on taxation, implications due to budget announcements and extension of filing of IT returns. So we cover virtually the entire gamut of the NPS. With these words, I once again welcome all distinguished guests. There are so many important people who have joined us. I'm not taking their names individually, but it's great to have all of you and all the participants who have joined us for this workshop, and hope that you find the session useful, interesting, and rewarding. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Sri Kalachwani, for the formal welcome address. I would now request Sri Supratim Bandyopadhyay, Chairman PFRDA, to formally deliver the keynote address.
Good morning.
You, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Aswani, and my thanks to FICCI, Kerala State Council, for arranging this webinar today, and through which you are organizing a NPS workshop. And FICCI has been always been providing this kind of support. This year also we had organized 3-4 webinars like this in different places. Last year also FICCI has supported us, and through that a lot of awareness is being created. So Mr. Aswani and his entire team, we are thankful to you. I thank my co-panelists, Madam Preeti Chandrasekhar, Senior Actuary from Mercer, as well as Mr. Sanil Nair, Senior Consultant from Mercer, will be talking about retirement benefits planning. And we have a very senior tax consultant and senior partner from Deloitte, Madam Burrows Kamdin, will be talking about the tax implications. So I believe, and apart from that, obviously, we have from Mr. PFRDA, our Executive Director, Mr. A.G. Das, will be talking about NPS as a product, its different aspects, nitty-gritties in detail. I believe the way the entire webinar is conceived, it will give a total understanding about not only the NPS, what is retirement benefit planning, as well as the tax part of it. So I thank Mercer and Madam Burrows Kamdin for joining us to make this session complete. So as Mr. Aswani has rightly pointed out in his inaugural address, that demography is undergoing a change. What we talk about demographic dividend today, tomorrow that will be converted into a demographic challenge. Because we are also aging, people in India are also aging, and we are aging fast. In this room itself, amongst us, very lightly, of course, that we have 3 senior citizens sitting here. So if you look at the total population, so it's a large percentage. So that way India is aging, and we understand that there is a concept called a dependency ratio that shows how many people in the non-working group, they are supported by people in the working group, which is about 6 today. 6 people are supporting a person who is aged and not working. But over the years, by 2050, it is going to be 1:3. That means 1 senior citizen will be supported by only 3 people. And it becomes even more challenging with the joint family system breaking down totally, so that maybe to a great extent that senior citizen has to fend for himself or herself. Quality of life definitely has improved. There has been a lot of medical advancement. Life expectancy has gone up. So much so, at the age of 60, people in India are living for another 17 to 18 years. But at the same time, your morbidity levels are also going up. As a result, what is happening? People are living, but at the same time, they have to spend quite a lot on medical treatment and other related activities. Under these circumstances, we feel that pension should be the most focused area of people around, but we see that the penetration is pretty low. Currently, it is only 2.1% of the total gross national disposable income, and that too if you take pension as well as provident fund together. Over the years, what has happened, pension sector in India, if you look at it, is quite fragmented. And if you add employees provident fund total asset base, along with that other specific provident funds like coal miners provident fund, tea planters, Assam tea planters provident fund, NPS, and if you take even pension funds or superannuation funds managed by insurance companies, all taken together, total asset base is just about 25 lakh crore, which is only 10% of our GDP. And if we compare it vis-a-vis some of the developed countries, like a small country like Switzerland, it is 148% of the GDP. It is even beating GDP by a very high margin. Australia, it is 120%, UK, it is 105%, US, it is 83%. Yes, there are developed countries, but as we see from the figures, we have a lot of catch up to do. So I believe there are this kind of financial awareness sessions about making people aware about the pension benefits is very important. It started in 2004, and it started only with central government employees that NPS came into being from 1st of January 2004, when government thought it is high time that they move over from defined benefit schemes, unfunded defined benefit schemes, to funded defined contribution scheme. And that was a very important step government had taken. Slowly, it went to state governments. Almost all state governments, apart from one or two, they have registered under NPS all their employees. After their notification, whoever joined, they are under NPS. So currently about 70 lakh state and central government employees are under our four. Apart from that, we have corporates. We opened it up to corporates. We opened it up to individuals, retail customers like you and me from 2009. So slowly there also people are coming and joining. But we feel and sincerely feel the growth could have been much better. Currently, we are managing an asset base of little over 5 lakh crore, around 5 lakh 20,000 crore of asset base under NPS. And it includes everything, as I told you, that government, non-government, retail, everybody is included there. As we know, like any retirement corpus, that it is always advisable to start early and build up a sizable corpus so that when you retire, your regular income is taken care of. People often ask us that how much do we really need at the point of retirement? This is, I believe, the single most difficult question to answer, because we don't know what the inflation rates will be. We don't know how much the prices of normal commodities will be. what will be the cost of medical treatment? All these things really we don't know. And really we don't know one more thing is that how much will be able to cut down on my regular expenses. People feel it's very easy to adjust post retirement to a new scenario, to a new situation, and cut down my regular expenses like that. But it's very easy to say post retirement, we feel it's very difficult to follow because a lifestyle that one has built up over 35, 40 years, it's very difficult to just overnight leave that lifestyle and adjust to something which is much lower than that. So these are practical issues that one has to really look into. So far as corporates are concerned, as I said, FICCI and of late, Indian Chamber of Commerce also has joined hands with us to take these financial awareness sessions ahead. I'm thankful to them. And because of that, a lot of corporates are coming. So much so, if you want to know the number, it is a very respectable number. 8,168 corporates as of today, they are registered with us. But that is the end of the story. Because what happens out of these 8,168 corporates, we see only 10.5 lakh actual NPS subscribers are there. So if you try to do a simple math, you will find that per corporate, maybe it will be close to 125. I am able to tell you with confidence because I did it just before joining. So, and if you look at some of the bigger corporates which are actually registered with us, it actually, the figure actually pales into insignificance in the sense that we have a TCS with us. I believe TCS is one of the largest employers in the country today, maybe after Indian Railways and Indian Postal System. No other public sector institution will be having this kind of employee base. Again, I checked 1,000 people have joined, hardly about 4,500, just about a percentage. And these are people, if you look at IT sector, these are people where the average age is pretty low. They are also, if only 1%, 1.5% people are taking NPS as a solution, and they don't have private sector as a group. Madam Preeti will be able to tell us better when our this thing comes, presentation comes, that they don't have any really, apart from PF or gratuity, any other retirement benefits. And if you look at it, gratuity, PF, whatever is given in a lump sum, that does not ensure a regular flow of income. I have the chance of frittering it away. I don't know. But NPS is a system which ensures that at least 40% of your corpus has to be annuitized, and it will come to you every month or every year as an annuity on a regular basis until your lifetime. So this is the only product, maybe apart from insurance managed superannuation funds, which also ensures a certain percentage of their corpus is converted into annuity. So here a lot of work, I believe, is to be done. And I believe a lot of corporates will be joining today. My appeal to the management or the HR people who will be there today is to ensure that you reach out to your employees, because we can engage to a certain level, but they are working with the management day in and day out, and always there is a faith and confidence on what the management says. So maybe sometimes you have to take the role of a teacher, of a mentor to these employees, individual employees, and tell them that a retirement benefit scheme is absolutely a must. There is no other choice, absolutely no other choice. And unless you have it, whatever other products you have that may give you some kind of benefit, but your regularity of income which people are feeling after the COVID related challenges. People have lost their jobs. People have seen their salaries being cut. So as a result, I do not know, maybe that also played a role. During this period, we have seen a spurt in our NPS onboarding. When all other sectors are talking about a degrowth, NPS is the only sector which has seen a growth even in the month of April, May, June, the worst affected period during the COVID, when the lockdowns were at its strictest. Today also we are seeing almost a 15% growth year on year in numbers, almost 20-21% growth on the corpus. And if you look at the contribution flow, there is almost 23% growth over years, over the previous years. We thought there will be a challenge, at least from state governments, whether the money will come in time. But it is coming in time. Everybody is serious about pension. So I believe corporates, as I said, has a very, very big role to play. Not only to introduce, that is definitely a big first step to introduce NPS in your organization, but to have a constant engagement with your employees. That is a must. Because when a 22, 23-year-old young boy or girl is joining organization, they feel they are, this thing is 35, 40 years away, retirement. Why to think about retirement now? And there are some interesting studies which say that a large percentage of these officials, these young boys and girls, they feel that they are never going to retire. These are interesting, unbelievable, but true. This is what is happening. And as a result, when we start deciding about pension, it is either late 40s and early 50s by the time it is too late. And today also, we see people coming and telling us, sir, I retired. This was the total corpus. I am getting a paltry pension of 2,500 rupees a month. You tell me, sir, how to make ends meet. We don't have an answer, ready-made answer for that. So everybody has to think for himself or herself. And since it is under an corporate umbrella, I believe corporates also have a very, very important role, as I said, of a guide, of a mentor, of a teacher, and to engage with the employees at a regular interval. If you need any help, PFRDA is always there. And I believe this is the only authority who not only manages and regulates, who also develops the sector, who creates financial awareness, and who markets its product. So we have a role which is very, very complex, but we really relish performing this role. That yes, we are coming closer to people, closer to employees, and explaining to them. And if we can make some few lives better, definitely we believe that is a job worth done. So thank you again, FICCI, for arranging this conference today, this workshop today. And thank you, Preeti, Madam Beroz, Sanil, for joining us and making this program really, really fruitful and complete. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Supratim Mangabadia, Chairman PFRDA, for the keynote address and elaborately stressing upon the importance of the NPS schemes, especially from the corporate's perspective, and the need to catch up also to enroll more and more companies on the NPS schemes. And we're really glad to hear the real aspects of the NPS scheme and the importance and also the need to give awareness about the NPS scheme in the corporate sector. Thank you, sir, for explaining all the important aspects. And we have also with us Mr. A.G. Das, Executive Director, PFRDA, for the presentation on the various critical aspects of the PFRDA. Over to Mr. A.G. Das, Executive Director, PFRDA, for the presentation. Sir, you are muted, sir. Can you just unmute? Yeah, now it's clear.
Good morning to all the dignitaries and a special thanks to FICCI for arranging this webinar and all the participants who are participating in this session. I'll take you through the product NPS, that is National Pension System,
Hello.
its salient features and other aspects. Just to start with, the features which I can describe in few points. The number one, I would rather say, this NPS has a brand that is called Permanent Retirement Account. It's portable, it's unique, it's portable. And the employees, if they shift from one company to other, they don't need to close the account and open another NPS account. The same PRAN can be used for continuance of the account in the other companies also. So this is a very unique feature. The next important feature, it's a low-cost product. It's as per the OECD report, this is the lowest product in the world. If you ask me the cost structure, it is one of the lowest in the world in comparing to other products available in the industry. There are a lot of flexible choices available in this product. People can choose many things. Like if you ask me the asset allocation, then choosing the pension fund managers, choosing the CRS. So it's very flexible. There are a lot of choices available in this product. And the next important aspect is the returns. After all, it really matters to the subscriber what kind of return I'm getting in this product vis-a-vis other products available in the industry. If you ask me, as of today, it is one of the best product giving one of the best returns in the industry. And I'll come to that detail in my coming slides. It's very tax efficient. This is the only product available in the country which has a special category of tax benefit. And this is very transparent, and the whole process is very transparent. And there are various intermediaries which work in tandem with each other. And there are online accesses available. People can watch their account sitting at home, and people can deposit money. People can do a lot of things through online method. This is well regulated. It is regulated by an authority that is called PFRDA. So people can be rest assured that the scheme runs very well. As far as the tax efficiency is concerned, I know Madam Behrouz will take it in detail. Just would like to say that under Section 80C, there are the tax benefit is available up to 1.5 lakhs, and under 80CC D1B, there are special benefits given for rupees 50,000 for this product. Now, coming to the types of accounts NPS has, there are two types of accounts. One is Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 is basically primarily a pension account, and Tier 2 is just like a savings account you maintain with any other bank. Tier 1 is a pension account. Tax benefits are available in Tier 1. There are, of course, restrictions on the withdrawals. The minimum contribution start with as minimum as rupees 500, and the per year there is a requirement of contribution of rupees 1,000 rupees, and there are no limits to the contribution. But as Chairman Sir was saying, one needs to build the corpus to get a better pension. So these are the minimum contribution, but I would request and suggest that people should contribute as much as possible, how much they can really afford to, so that the corpus becomes bigger at the time of exit. Now, as regards to the tier 2 account, this is an optional account with active tier 1 accounts. Without a tier 1 accounts, tier 2 accounts cannot be opened. There are no tax benefits available, and withdrawals are not restricted. As I told you, it's just like works like a savings bank account. And the minimum contribution to open tier 2 account is rupees 1,000, and minimum contribution is rupees 250. And again, there are no limits on the contribution. There are options that one can choose. So if you ask me, practically this gives a far better returns than the savings bank accounts. The person joins into the system. The people who are in the age bracket of 18 to 65 are eligible to join in the system. There are requirement of fulfillment of KYC, know your this thing, and people can join through online mode as well as physical mode. Through online mode, of course, through PAN and bank account, through the bank account, and also through the Aadhaar. And in physical mode, of course, we have our distribution channels available across the countries. Those are called basically point of presence. They can be banks, they can be NBFCs, they can be brokers. So people, wherever they maintain their account, savings bank account, they can approach to that bank or a center and open an NPS account. Or if they choose to join through online, they can also join through online mode. Now, there are 3 stages to pass through in this process. One is accumulation, entry, and second one is accumulation, and third one is exit. So now coming to the accumulation part, basically individuals or corporate employees can join into the system. The contributions for a corporate employee can be equal or can be unequal. In many cases, what we have seen, the corporate also contributes to some extent, like 10% of the basic or more for the employees, because this is an area where employee benefits are concerned. And some places also we have seen that corporates do not contribute anything. So that's what I said, that the corporate employee can join individually or through the corporate who have registered with us for NPS. Now just to share my my personal experience, I have visited Wipro, Infosys and all in Bangalore, and I've met the HR and finance guys, and I found that though there is a minimum requirement of 50 up to rupees 15,000 people should join PF, but people who are getting much more salary are also joining PF, which is not a requirement. This is basically the lack of awareness in the process. So my request would be to all the participants to see that the people are aware that there is another product available in the basket. People can choose whether to join PF or NPS. That will probably benefit the corporates who have already registered with us. However, the penetration level are not that good, and that will probably strengthen the number of employees joining into the system. Now, once this subscriber joins into the system, the funds are the contribution comes into the system, which are basically invested by our pension fund managers. And there are 7 pension fund managers presently in the system. I'll come to that in detail. And there is a central record keeping agency we have. There are two central record keeping agency presently we have, which basically unitizes the amount, and NAV is being declared by them, and the corpus grows. Now, coming to the exit, how do a subscriber exit from the system? There are no restrictions that one cannot exit before the maturity. There are premature exit is also available, and normal exit is available. In case of premature exit, the 80% of the corpus gets annuitized, and only 20% lump sums are given. But in case if the corpus is less than 1 lakh, 100% lump sum is given in cash to the subscriber. Under the normal circumstances, 40% of the corpus gets annuitized, and 60% he or she can take it in lump sum. And in this case, 100% lump sum is, if it is less than 2 lakh, the subscriber can take it through cash. But here again, I would rather suggest that this 60% lump sum is tax free. So and also the 40% annuitized portion is also tax free. So I can say that this is 100% tax free. But people can choose to annuitize even up to 100%. There is no limit on that, so that the corpus becomes big. Now, as I was saying, that we have this after the exit, the annuity service providers, basically these are the life insurance companies, they provide pensions to the subscriber. Presently, we have got 12 annuity service providers empaneled with us, namely LIC, SBI, HDFC, ICICI, Star Union, India First, Canara HSBC, Kotak, and Max Life. So people can choose to join with any annuity service provider. The rates of the annuity are also available in the website of PFRDA as well as NPS Trust. People can compare who is providing what kind of annuity for a particular for a particular amount, and choose to join wherever they feel convenient. So now coming to the flexibility, which I was talking in the first slide, the choices are being given to join a record keeping agency. We have presently NSDL and KFintech. There are 2 record keeping agency available. People can choose through their POP to join any of them. We have got 7 pension fund managers who basically takes care of the investment part, who invest the corpus amount and earns return on it. They are namely SBI, LIC, UTI, ICICI, HDFC, Kotak, and Birla. So they are presently these pension fund managers are doing their best to get the best return available in the industry. So people can choose to join any of them. Even in the asset allocation, what kind of asset they want to allocate and what proportion they want to allocate, that is also, there is also flexibility. This equity, under equity, people can allocate up to 75%. There is a provision. And in case of corporate bond, it can go up to 100%, and also in GSEC, that is government securities. There are also provisions for investment in alternate asset, basically REITs, InvITs, and all, up to 5% of the total corpus. So people can choose their allocation, asset allocation, as per their risk appetite and kind of returns they are seeking to get. So there is a flexibility here also. In case of asset allocation, there are also facilities available like auto choice. People default scheme. We have got three default scheme. One is LC 75, LC 50, and LC 25. 25 is a basically conservative approach. 50 is a moderate approach, and 75 is a aggressive approach. So people, as per their age and risk appetite, can choose this auto choice mode also, wherein certain and thereafter equity exposure reduces annually. So this is a kind of default scheme available. Those who do not want to go through a deeper study of asset allocation, they can choose this default scheme and remain in the system. Now, coming to the return part, as I was telling, it's one of the best return available in the industry. I can, yeah. If you can see under equity, it's almost giving a return of 10.6 in 11 years. Why I'm saying 11 years? Because the scheme, this data has been taken for that period. Corporate bond is giving a yield of 10.38%. Under GSEC, it is 10.19%. Under central government scheme, that is we call CG scheme, it is giving a return of 9.99%. And under state government, it is 9.90%. So I think we can very well compare with the returns generated by other products available in the industry. So, and PFRDA also ensures that the NPS generates good returns for their subscribers. Now, just to give you a status, the position as of 31st October 2020, we have total subscriber base of 383 lakhs. And if you ask me the bifurcation of this, under NPS, we have two segment. One is corporate segment. One is all citizen model. We had a scheme called NPS Lite, wherein in whose place this Atal Pension Yojana has come. That has a kitty of 43 lakhs. Then under asset under management of these subscribers is about 5,12,252 crores. And under the corporate sector, if you ask me, we have got around 52,896 crores, and all citizen model, we have got 16,843 crores, and respectively. So we have seen a good growth in last 3 to 4 years in NPS. And I remember of holding an physical conference in Cochin about 4 years back, wherein about 70 to 80 corporates participated with a crowd of more than 200 people. So now happy to see that again we are holding this webinar in Cochin. Now coming to the accessibility part, as I was telling you that people can join online. Web portals are available in NSDL site, and we have got eNPS portal also. People can join online. We have got mobile app which is very handy, and people can download that app and also access to the account and do the requirements instead of physically visiting the point of presence. Now, having said all, now we also have a very good grievance redressal mechanism. The subscriber, if he or she has any kind of grievance, raise it to the respective point of presence or corporate, or he has a facility to lodge the grievance through central grievance management system we have, wherein he can upload their grievance, and also they have been facility to write to us or write to the concerned intermediary through written application or through email. If this is not redressed at that level, it is being escalated to NPS Trust. Again, the modes are same through CGMS or email or through written application. And NPS Trust again takes this matter with the intermediary and tries to redress the grievances. If it is not redressed, it is further escalated to the ombudsman we have. We have an ombudsman sitting in our office who basically takes care of the grievances redressal part. Ombudsman awards the decision, and if after that there are level of PFRDA comes into picture, if it is not redressed at that level also, then further this escalation can be to PFRDA and then to SAT. So this grievance redressal mechanism is quite strong, quite transparent. So people need not worry about their services part. In case they don't find the kind of services they are expecting or that is mentioned, they can come through this grievance redressal system, and those can be attended to. So I stop here and thank again to FICCI and the participants. During the question and answer session, in case you have got any doubts or clarifications, please come forward. We'll be happy to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. A.G. Das, Executive Director, PFRDA, for very comprehensively explaining about the features of comprehensively explaining about the NPS aspects, advantage of NPS, and how it's beneficial to the employees and the roles of fund managers. And I'm sure the participants are really enriched by the explanation given from your end. There will be a lot of questions in the Q&A sessions. And thank you, sir. We move to the next very important also speaker from the retirement benefits planning. To take the session, we have Ms. Preeti Chandrasekhar, India Business Leader, Health, Wealth and Fellow, Actuary Merchant, and also Mr. Sanil Nair, Senior Consultant. Over to Ms. Preeti for the presentation.
Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon to all of you. Hope all of you are staying safe and healthy. At the outset, I would like to thank PFRDA for giving us the opportunity to share thoughts on perhaps what is my favorite subject professionally. And given that, as the PFRDA chairman mentioned, that some of us may be senior citizens or some of us may actually be officially hanging our boots in some sense, it is a subject that is personal to me also. So I would request Swami to start sharing the slides, please.
Yeah, Preeti, I'm Milind sir. May I request you to share the PDF, please, if it's possible at your end?
Okay, can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the topics that we're going to be discussing is, can we really afford longevity, and how can employers play a role in reducing financial stress? And we'll later on touch upon specific insights based on our experience in helping employers through the NPS program. And I will have my colleague Sunil sharing insights based on his experience in helping companies implement NPS. So can we move on to the next slide, please? Yes, next one. Yes, that's the one. So what are we seeing here? If you see, pension systems around the world, including social security and private sector arrangements, are really under pressure more than ever before. And there are multiple things that are happening. There were some statistics shared around significant aging of the population in many countries, low growth, low interest rate environments, etc. If you just keep COVID aside for a moment, and I know COVID has changed a lot of things for all of us. Keeping that aside, pre-COVID days also, what we've seen is an increased prevalence of defined contribution scheme. And importantly, the lack of easy access to pension plans for some workers, especially in the unorganized sector, specifically to India, has meant that informal labor force is not, in some sense, covered under the plan. And third important thing is really the fact that all of us want flexibility. Retirees want to seek better control and flexibility over their financial affairs, which clearly means that we need to have systems which give flexibility, but which mean that if I get flexibility, I need to have more responsibility on myself. So it's a combination of both. And then we will also see how employers can play a role in this. Move on to the next slide, please. So this is one perspective that we are seeing. We have an index called the MCGPI index, and the latest one where the results were released in October, we are seeing that India is ranked about 34 amongst 39 countries with an overall index that you see over here of a 45.7. And we might say that, oops, we are so low in the whole ranking. But what is important for us is to really understand our specific context in this sense, and then look at some of the best practices from other countries that can be mapped to our context. So what is important for our overall system perspective? Adequacy, that's the first index. Then what does one get towards retirement income? Sustainability, how long can one get that kind of money? And integrity, is there a risk of default? This is about a overall country pension system. Map it to our own personal retirement savings. These are the three important questions we need to ask. Are my retirement savings enough? Would I be getting enough income to replace my regular salaried income when I retire? How long is it likely to sustain for me? How long am I likely to get it? Third one is the kind of money that I'm getting. Is there a likely risk of this default? So that means that I have to choose the products which give me retirement income very carefully. We move on to the next slide. Now, the point that I mentioned, can we afford our longevity? The life expectancy in India at the age of 60, as studies have indicated, is 78, which means that we would, on an average, be expected to live 18 years after retirement. Can we really afford it? And the figure that you see on this particular slide talks about the size of shortfall in pension savings through a retirement savings gap. And here we consider income from three sources: government provided, which of course in India, if you look at the corporate people, then it is extreme. It is not there practically. Employer pensions, that is the PF gratuity, etc., that we're talking about, and the individual savings. And why is it a challenge? We are seeing few things that would be interesting for us to see, that we and India and China in this case, in this particular scenario, of course, they are like the gap is fastest growing. And while India, it's about 10%, in China is about 7%. And what are the drivers? We are having a rapidly aging population. Like the gentleman for FICCI in the opening remarks talked about 10% global senior citizens being there in India. There was a mention about the dependency ratio also. So clearly we are having a rapidly aging population, one. Labor force in the unorganized sector is the second one, and the growing middle class. What has happened with us is our quality of life has improved, and so the expectations from retirement income has also grown. So these three aspects put together mean that we need to question whether the kind of replacement income that I have post retirement, basis the savings that I have done on my own and through my employer sponsored schemes, are they enough? And we will see in subsequent slides what the challenges are. So if we move on to the next slide, what are we seeing here? We are seeing that there are multiple forces acting on my salary, right? So I have so my salary is what is there in the middle. And these are all, avenues for outflows. We are talking about my regular household expenses. I'm talking about my medical expenses. I'm talking about providing for my children's education, etc. The whole lot of things that act on my salary, which seems okay because I'm still able to manage my savings to some extent. But if we move on to the next slide, can we move on to the next slide, please? Yep. So what has happened over here? We are seeing that my salary vanishes, right? And it is expected to be replaced by my retirement income. So my expenses continue. All the other expenses we're talking about will continue. Yet I need to continue saving for some of the unforeseen expenses. And medical expenses actually would increase. All results, all studies, everything, all data indicates that medical expenses rise significantly post retirement, and most of us from the private sector do not have the fortune of actually being covered under post retirement medical schemes. So I would need to pretty much fend for my own medical expenses post retirement. So what's happening there? My salary has disappeared. It has to be replaced by retirement income. So the question all of us need to ask, and more importantly, when we're talking to our employees, and there was a data point talked about in terms of while the number of subscribers in terms of corporate NPS are high, the kind of sign-ups by employees is low. That's because many of the people in the organization are not able to understand that once my salary disappears, how will I be able to take care of my expenses on an ongoing basis? Especially given the fact, which I had talked about in my previous slide, that our expenses are increasing because our generally lifestyles have improved. There are a lot of avenues for spending money. I mean, there are more and more every day. You have all the festival discounts, what have you. So we need to actually discipline ourselves to even start looking at the avenues for savings. And NPS, of course, is one of the best products that we can think of when it comes to saving towards your retirement. We move on to the next slide. So what are we seeing over here? We are seeing that we talked about current corporate plans, whether they're enough or not. Typically, requirement for a comfortable retirement is anywhere between 70 to 80%, given that we are talking about my retirement income covering my medical expenses also. And if you see this particular slide, we see that, excluding superannuation, because we are seeing increasingly there are very few companies who are moving towards superannuation plan. And the fact that all lump sum would be invested in annuities, we're seeing requirement is around 70%, and including NPS at a 10%, we're just about 30 to 40%, which is clearly not enough. So we need to act, and this is with NPS. If it's without NPS, it's even lower. So we have to actually actively think of retirement planning in a very systematic manner and see whether it is what we are having from PF and gratuity is enough for us to save on an ongoing basis to be able to replace our salaried income with a sufficient amount of retirement income. Okay, so far, you might think that this is something that all of us know about. Okay, this seems intuitive. So we thought we will give you a slightly different perspective. And this is not something that, a bunch of us are sitting here and talking about. We will go on to the next section where I will share some insights from what we are seeing amongst organizations, amongst employees. If you see the slide here, this is based on a study called Global Talent Trends Survey that we do every year from Mercer. The top one you see, it says that financial well-being is amongst top 4 priorities when employees prefer an employer. So one of the top 4 reasons why a company and an individual chooses an organization, financial well-being features there. That's the first point. The second point is wage stagnation is expected to continue for at least for some time thanks to COVID. Clearly, financial planning is focused. And these study results came just around when COVID actually became a pandemic. So it has it has the flavor of what was expected somewhere around May or June in terms of the economic impact of COVID, though not completely. But then, people do understand that given what was there at that time, the wage stagnation was continuing. So obviously, financial planning is focused. And if you look at the rightmost bottom side, you only have about 29% of the companies offering financial education. So clearly, we launch an NPS program, we facilitate programs, but if there is no proper education, there's no proper nudge for people to encourage them to save towards through NPS, then it is, we will have a high number of corporate subscribers, but the penetration is going to be extremely low. So that's something that all corporates need to really understand. We move on to the next slide. So here we see, why do employees join, stay, and leave an organization? All 3 aspects you see, financial well-being initiatives and pension retirement options, are really featuring among the priority. They may not be really the top ones, but there's definitely something that employees look towards while they are switching organizations. And this is contrary to the belief which has been going around for quite many years that cash is king, you give the money to people, let them figure out how they save, etc. Clearly, that was relevant a few years ago, but recent studies indicate that employees really want their employers to help them through their financial wellness or well-being programs. If you move on to the next slide. This is perhaps the last one from an employee perspective based on the survey. What we have seen, and all data here indicates that employees really want employers to help them in retirement. And contrary to what employers may think, it is not considered intrusive. It's actually something which is considered inclusive by the employees. So, clearly we see that there is a lot of scope for organizations to do something about retirement, especially not just about, helping plan for retirement when they are young, but also help people plan on retirement just about a few years before their retirement. So it's really a journey that employees expect employers to handhold them through. And we are seeing we have very interesting insights about based on the kind of experiences people have shared when we help companies implement NPS programs. And towards that, I would request my colleague Sanil Nayan to take over and take you to the last few slides. Over to you, Sanil.
Thank you so much, Preeti. Next slide, please. Good afternoon, everyone. So coming on the slide, so what are the thoughts of some of our clients and their employees on retirement benefit and planning? These slides give you an employer and employee perspective. What is shown here is 4 generations of employees working together, but each with their own mindset of saving and retirement planning. For example, for a younger lot, most of the time cash is king, and they would rather enjoy the present than saving for the future. Hence, perceived value of retirement benefits is quite low. On the other hand, for a middle-aged person, retirement saving or a sustainable standard of living post-retirement becomes one of the priority. From employer perspective, we have seen what they look for is minimum administrative burden and fiduciary responsibility when they look forward to implement or even evaluate any retirement program. They would like to play conservative without any risk on investment for their employees. Employer also believe that higher and better employee engagement is higher is the success of any such plans. They are conscious of the fact that each age group have different priorities and their attitude differs accordingly. Hence, taking everyone together on this journey does becomes a challenge at times. On right side of the slide, if you see, you will see what employees' priorities are when they choose or pick any retirement plans. They look for flexibility, simplicity, higher returns, and prefer overall holistic approach to financial wellness, and not just sticking to one kind of a solution or investment only. Next slide, please. Yeah. So out here, so what will work well? How can employer help? What challenges they face? Today, from Indian pension perspective, organization offer superannuation and NPS, as we know. Some offer both, and for some, either one of them. However, now more and more companies are moving towards NPS. NPS is steadily becoming popular in corporate model. However, the take-up rate still remains a challenge, as also mentioned by Mr. Chairman some time back. Reason being, it's a voluntary pension program, as we all know. So engaging employees could be challenging. Topics related to financial wellness does not always excite all age groups. We have also seen education sessions alone on retirement planning may not be sufficient and effective. So what will make a difference? Based on our own experience, we feel effective communication and personalized approach does make an impact and result in higher engagement. NPS is surely a product with some appealing features. However, it needs to be communicated well. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit more about the challenges faced by both the stakeholders. Here we are referring to employer and employee. To start with employer, for most of the MNCs, global buy-in is imperative before they launch any such plan locally. We have seen global leadership who first would like to be convinced before local teams take over. This process at times becomes time consuming, and to the extent sometimes the entire implementation plan itself gets deferred for a later stage. Third-party payroll dependency is another important factor. Their system needs to be really ready to include NPS as one of the components. The delay at their end would eventually end up delaying the entire launch itself. As we discussed earlier, employee engagement and internal operations support are important tick in the box to decide for any such implementation for a corporate. For employees, people at different level of well-being and their responses to company initiatives are different. I would still be attracted to iPhone for that matter, and retirement saving could take a backseat. So priorities are different. Another common issue, what we see is that employees are unsure when to start saving, how much to save, what is the ideal time. They sometimes do have the intent to save, but when is undecided. That's what we call as intent action gap. And rather, their decision get deferred every time. So lack or inadequate financial literacy is a big challenge here. We also feel right balance between their expenses and saving is another issue employees face, and this imbalance would further result in no or inadequate retirement planning. Next slide, please. So here we come to the final slide and an important slide. What ensures success of NPS program in an organization? Take-up rate is proof of the pudding. So what actually goes in it? First, effective and personalized communication, as we spoke in earlier slide. This does make a difference to success percentage. If employees relate themselves to the concept of retirement planning and not as a product, they will surely opt in for the program. Second, right partner for successful implementation is very important. An efficient intermediary, for that matter, here we are referring to POP, would ensure smooth and timely account opening and grievance handling. Result, a satisfied employee would always speak high about the program to more and more employees. To ensure successful NPS program, a company should ensure regular engagement with their employees and not to treat entire implementation as one-time assignment. This needs to be an ongoing activity. They need to understand the intention and action gap, as we mentioned earlier. For example, can we use opt-out option instead of opt-in? Will that work? Maybe a worthwhile try. Finally, company leadership needs to lead by example. That's what we feel. They should be convinced and further convince employees on the relevance of the retirement planning as an approach. So this brings to end of our presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Preeti Chandrasekhar and Mr. Sanil Nair from the worker group for very elaborately explaining about the importance of the NPS schemes and also for the retirement plans, especially in the India scenario where the life expectancy has all improved and the quality of life has improved. And towards the later part of the year, there's a lot of expenses are incurred for the medical expenses. And from the employer's perspective also, the need to guide the employees to take to the NPS and the other pension schemes, which will be very beneficial for them to the later part of the year. And we have really covered the entire aspects, and need to say, I'm sure the participants are really enriched by the presentations. We'll have a lot of questions on the Q&A. And we'll move to the last and final speaker of the day, Mr. Boris Kamtin, partner, Deloitte Huskins and Sales LLP, on the taxation implication on the employment, on the NPS schemes, and also the IT returns, extension of the IT returns by the IT industry partner. Over to Boris.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Savio. Thank you, Mr. Bandyopadhyay, Chairman PFRDA, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Deepak Aswani, FICCI, for organizing these workshops and giving us an opportunity. What better day can we have today, a workshop on knowledge sharing, then today is a National Education Day. So we are celebrating the birth anniversary of our Vice President, India's first Vice President, Mr. Maulana Azad. And it's a National Education Day, and FICCI organizes workshops on very apt days, I've seen. Always in the past also I've noticed that the workshops are very aptly placed. And secondly, today is the first day of our Diwali celebration. We call it Vag Baras, and we'll soon have Dhanteras and we'll have Diwali, and those are the days when we really make investments. So I think it's very apt that we are aware of these products which are there for retirement, and we start looking at making investments during the Diwali celebrations. Thank you, Mr. Das, for taking us through the features of NPS and highlighting the returns which NPS has given us. Thank you, Priti and Sanil, for sharing the importance of having a retirement product. Just to share my experience, in my first job where I worked for 8 years, and there was a contribution which was made for a pension product. It was a private pension fund. And since I worked only for 8 years, I could not get the pension for it because the eligibility criteria was 10 years. And I think this is one basic, very key feature of NPS, that even when you leave organizations, you take the account with you. So you don't lose on the employer contribution. And it continues to earn and accumulate income till the retirement age, which is one very important feature of NPS. The second important feature which I thought was transparency. I can decide the fund manager, I can change a fund manager, I can change the mix of my investment. So everything is with me and I can decide and do it. So it's very important. It's not unlike the other pension funds or superannuation funds which are there, where it's like it's accumulated. We don't know where the investments are being made, and we get an amount at the end of the year, at the end of retirement. So here, transparency, I think, is very important and key factor for NPS. The third, which Mr. Bandyopadhyay did mention about, was a defined benefit plan. Vis-a-vis now what we have is a defined contribution plan. A defined benefit plan was that after the age of retirement, I get pension of say 10,000 rupees per month. It's a fixed amount, a defined benefit plan. Irrespective of how much contribution I've made, I get a defined pension amount. And that is fixed. So sometimes the amount, because of inflation, because of taxation, is not material after a few years. While here I get a case where I actually can invest based on whatever I receive at maturity. 60% I can invest separately and 40% I take annuity. So what gets fixed is the 40% part of it. 60% can still grow. So surely I have a benefit when it comes to defined contribution plans. It has its pros and cons, but you need to look at all of that. The last part of it was the return on investments. Mr. Das mentioned that the return on investments have been very good in NPS. And there are several reasons for that. One, of course, the markets have been doing well in India. The fund managers have been managing it well. But if you look at it, NPS has got certain tax advantages. So whenever we look at return, we look at net of tax return. And that's very important. Whenever you make an investment, whether it's for short term, whether it's for long term retirement basis, you always look at the tax advantage for it. Because what I'm going to get is the cash flow. So which is going to be net of tax. So when I look at net of tax returns on NPS, there are three things which come to mind first before we go to the actual tax implications. The income which the NPS trust earns is exempt from tax. So the NPS trust does not pay tax on it, which is normal. Even a mutual fund is exempt from tax because the investors in the fund are taxable. So which is common with a mutual fund, NPS trust does not pay tax. But if you look at it, securities transaction tax. So when you buy and sell securities on the stock exchange, every person needs to pay a securities transaction tax. NPS has got an advantage over here. They've got a benefit to say there's no securities transaction tax payable when you buy and sell securities on the stock exchange. So you actually gain by the cash flow which comes in, and that's get reinvested. We all are aware that dividends and interest income is now taxable. Earlier, dividends were not taxable. The company, Indian company paying dividends, used to pay a dividend distribution tax. NPS had an advantage even there. So in the earlier years, whenever dividends were declared, dividend distribution tax was being paid by Indian companies, but there was no DDT when they're paying to a NPS trust. So there was an advantage for an NPS trust. But it was common to all shareholders, so you couldn't really feel the advantage. But now when it becomes taxable for the investors, so from 1st April 2020, dividends are taxable for the investors. And the Indian company has to withhold tax. We have a separate section, section 196 in the Income Tax Act, which says that when you pay dividends or you pay interest to an NPS trust, there's no withholding of tax. And that is the advantage which NPS will now be getting. So I'm going to get a higher amount of cash flow coming in when dividends gets distributed now, when interest gets paid, because there's no withholding of tax. So these are some key advantages of the NPS trust. No withholding applies to mutual funds also. So it's not a case that when companies distribute to mutual funds, they need to withhold tax. They don't need to. But like we say, whenever you're looking at retirement, you need to look at all options which are available. And just one of them is not sufficient. We've seen that how inflation is coming and eating into it, how our expenses will continue to grow even post-retirement. So we can't only rely on a provident fund or a public provident fund or a superannuation fund or gratuity for our retirement benefits. We need to look at all products which are available for retirement benefits. So now we will discuss on the tax implications of investing in NPS. We can go to the next slide. So we will talk today on the tax incentives, what are changes which have happened in the Finance Act 2020, and what are the reliefs which the government has provided under COVID situation. So we saw Mr. Das speak through it to say that when we are looking at an NPS or any retirement product, we look at when we invest into it, the accumulations that have happened during the year or in the funds, and on retirement, on closure of the fund, what the amount is. Similarly, from tax perspective, we look at when we invest into the fund, what are tax benefits available, what are tax benefits for the accumulation that the fund has, and what are tax benefits available on withdrawal. So on retirement, we need to look at all of these. And when we speak of contributions, we look at both contributions of the employees and contribution of the employer. Both has to be looked at and tax implications have to be looked at. Next slide. So when we come to employee contribution to the provident fund, there are certain limits which they have prescribed within the contribution itself to say that if an employee contributes up to 10% of the salary and dearance allowance, he will get a deduction under section 80CCD. If it's more than 10%, then that is not allowed as a deduction. Accordingly, as mentioned by Mr. Bandyopadhyay and Mr. Das, an individual like me and you, so this is very key to NPS also. You don't need to be an employee to have an NPS account. As an individual also, you can contribute to NPS. There you get 20% of the gross income. You get a deduction under 80CCD. Now, this deduction is coterminous with the deductions which are available for PF, Provident Fund, Public Provident Fund, insurance. So all deductions that you get under 80CCC and 80CCD in aggregate cannot exceed 1,50,000 rupees. So it is not something additional that you're getting. All three deductions have to be taken together and 1,50,000 has to be looked at. However, like Mr. Das mentioned, there's a unique proposition in NPS. You get a deduction of up to 50,000 rupees, which you contribute to NPS. So even if you've exhausted all your limits under PF and PPF and insurance, etc., under ATC, you still get an additional deduction of 50,000 under 80CC D1, which is very important. And if you look at it, you look at net of tax benefit, you could be in highest tax bracket of 30%. So 30% of 50,000, you get immediate tax relief. So that is a key importance of NPS. In the earlier years, we've seen all along in India, our government has actually given tax incentives for savings. And that's very important because we don't have a government retirement fund. So every person doesn't get an amount on retirement. So our government also has been encouraging this. In the in 2019, the government proposed, 19 and 20, the government actually proposed to say that you could avail of a lower rate of tax. And if you avail of a lower rate of tax, then you do not get certain exemptions and certain benefits and certain deductions. So if you offer a lower rate of tax, which is applicable from this assessment year, this financial year, April 2021, under section 115 BAC, then you do not get a deduction for the employee contribution or individual contribution that you do. But if you're not availing of the lower rate of tax, you still can get the tax benefit of individual contribution which is made. Now, when you look at the employer contribution in the fund, employer contribution to NPS is fully taxable for the employee. So it is part of my salary income. If you look at this and you compare it with Provident Fund, even Provident Fund employer contribution, if it exceeds 10% of your salary, 12% of your salary will become taxable. In this case, the entire contribution is taxable. However, they have given a deduction under 80CCD2 to say the entire employer's contribution, which is taken as salary, will be allowed as a deduction without any cap. So irrespective of whatever the amount of employer's contribution is, the entire amount is allowed as a deduction. And this deduction continues even if you opt for a lower rate of tax. So if the employee opts for a lower rate of tax, under section BAC, the employer's contribution will still be allowed as a deduction. The Finance Act has made a slight change, which we'll discuss a little later. But what they have done is the employer's contribution to NPS has now been taken along with other employers' contribution to arrive at a limit of 7,50,000. So we will discuss this amendment in the next slides. But this is key to know. So employers' contribution is anyway taxable as salary, plus employers' contribution will be taken in the limit to arrive at 7,50,000. Now, when you look at the annual accretion to NPS account, all the accretions that happen to the NPS account should not be taxable. However, in the Finance Act, they have brought an amendment, which we'll discuss a little later, to say that if the annual accretion relates to the amount of contribution by the employer, which is in excess of 7,50,000 rupees, that amount is taxable. So what they're trying to do is that they're trying to say that employer's contribution over and above 7,50,000 should be taxable, and any accretion that the NPS account has on this additional or the excess amount of employer's contribution would also be taxable. Withdrawal from the fund, like was mentioned earlier, when you withdraw or when on retirement, when you withdraw. So this withdrawal from the fund is on closing or on opting out of the scheme, not the normal withdrawals during the scheme itself. So when you withdraw on retirement, 40% has to be taken as an annuity. So you need to take 40% of the amount payable as annuity, and that amount is not taxable. So whatever you purchase annuity is not taxable. Whatever you receive as annuity post that on a monthly basis is of course taxable as normal income. 60% of the amount which is payable is also exempt from tax. So basically what you look at is, you presently, if you're on a normal rate of tax, you have an EEE exemption. So when you contribute, you get a tax benefit. When the annual accretions, there should be no taxation, so it's exempt. And when you withdraw also, it's exempt. So there's an EEE benefit that you get from NPS, assuming that you're lower than 7,50,000 of employer's contribution. And annuity, what you receive post the retirement, is taxable, which is any case even provident fund. If you receive provident fund on retirement, the provident fund is exempt from tax. But when you invest that provident fund, whatever income you earn would be either taxable or not taxable, depending on where you make your investments. Partial withdrawal from the fund during the financial year. Partial withdrawal is allowed, and there's a tax exemption given of 25% of the total amount of contributions which the employee makes. So this exemption, is the way it is worded, speaks of only employee contribution. It doesn't speak of individual contribution. So there is a doubt to say that if an individual withdraws for benefits for purposes which are allowed as per NPS, would they be taxed or not? Or would they get an exemption? Contribution to Tier 2 account by central government employees. So Mr. Das mentioned that you make a contribution to a Tier 2 account of NPS, there are no tax benefits. They've given one tax benefit to only central government employees to say that this amount of contribution under ATC, because it will be subject to a lock-in of 3 years. So if you have a lock-in of 3 years on your contribution to Tier 2 account by central government employees, it will be allowed as a deduction under ATC. And this comes under the overall limit of 1,50,000. So there's no higher limit provided. It's only covered under 1,50,000 limit as per section 80CCE. So otherwise, whatever contributions you make to a Tier 2 account will be normal as if it's like a mutual fund. There's no other tax benefits which are there. Accumulations will not be taxed, but whatever withdrawals happen, those will be taxable. Next slide, if we go to. Now the Finance Act 2020. So we've seen that an employer has a provident fund, employer has superannuation fund, which was approved superannuation fund, and they also have contribution to national pension systems. Now there was an earlier clause which says that if there's a contribution to an approved superannuation fund by the employer, to the extent it exceeds 1,50,000 rupees, it was taxable. So up to 1,50,000 rupees, the amount was not taxable. So you do have cases where employers had floated superannuation funds and had approved superannuation funds, and there was a contribution being made of up to 1,50,000 rupees, which was tax-free. Now what the Finance Act has made a change. They have amended, they have removed this clause 7, and they have inserted a new clause to say that the aggregate amount of contributions made by an employer to a recognized provident fund, to a NPS account, the scheme referred to ATCCD is the National Pension Scheme, and to an approved superannuation fund, all three put together should not exceed 7,50,000 rupees. If it exceeds 7,50,000 rupees, then the excess would be taxable. And this is effective for the current financial year. So any amount of employer contribution in excess of 7,50,000 rupees is taxable for the employee in the current year itself. Then they also say that if there's an annual accretion by way of interest, dividend, or any other amount of similar nature, the words used are interest, dividend, or any other amount of similar nature, during the previous year to the balance at the credit of the fund or the scheme, and to the extent it relates to the contribution referred to in the clause above, which is including total income, then this accretion relating to that taxable contribution would be taxable as salary. So basically, any amount that you pay above 7,50,000 rupees would be taxable, and any interest or dividend or any similar accretion that is there to the fund on this excess amount would be taxable. Now, they have yet not prescribed the method of computing this excess amount, how the priorities will work, whether they will prioritize saying that first it should go towards the 7,50,000 goes towards provident fund, to NPS because NPS is fully taxable, and then to superannuation fund. So is the excess coming out of superannuation fund? They have not listed out the priorities yet. They've also not listed out the method of arriving at this computation of excess interest accretion during the year. We are waiting the rules for the same, and we wait to see what happens. Next slide. COVID reliefs. So there are few reliefs that they have provided, and the employer and employee contribution to PF was reduced from 12% to 10% on monthly basis for the 3 months period, May, June, July. There was a non-refundable advance that was provided by EPF to their members in the event of this epidemic. And the question that arose, and there were questions that our clients have raised on this non-refundable advance, was basically to say that whether this amount would be taxable. Assuming the employee has not completed 5 years and he takes a non-refundable advance, would this amount be taxable? If it's more than 5 years, then it should not be taxable any which way if all the other conditions are satisfied. But if supposing an employee is only for 5-year period and he's taken this non-refundable advance, whether it should be taxable, our view was that it should not be taxable because the PF has not been closed. It still continues and it's only an advance that has been taken, though non-refundable. Therefore, the amount should not be taxable. But there's no clarity as such provided by tax authorities on this. Partial withdrawal to fulfill financial needs for COVID-related, PFRDA also has allowed this. And like we mentioned earlier, partial withdrawal should not be taxable to the extent of 25% of employee contribution. There's no clarity if an individual were to withdraw, it should become taxable. As the law reads today, it should be taxable unless it's clarified that even an individual will get benefits. Investments for claiming deduction under Chapter 6A, 80C, CCD. So basically the new provisions of lower rate of tax come into effect from the current year. So current year, you do not get these deductions. So you don't make investments in this if you want to go under lower rate of tax. But for the earlier year, 1920, the lower rate of tax was not applicable. And the government has actually provided extension of time. So you can, otherwise what you had to invest by 31st March 2020, you could now make investment by 31st July 2020. And that would be taken into account for claiming deduction in the earlier period. So you're getting a deduction a year before, though you're making an investment by July 2020. And this was specific relief which the government has given because of the COVID pandemic. So we have actually seen clients who have invested during this 3-month period, April, May, June, July, and claimed a deduction in the earlier year. You need to take this into account when you're doing your salary computations and salary TDS certificates, or you need to claim it in the return of income. Extension of timeline for filing the return of income for the financial 1920. It was till 30th November earlier. Recently, the government has extended the timeline and it has now become 31st December 2020. So we have time to file the return of income and make these claims. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to do it. And we would be happy to even have workshops to explain to your employees on what the tax benefits are. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Savio.
Thank you, Ms. Boru's company partner Deloitte Huskin and Sells LLP on very elaborately explaining about the taxation implication on the NP schemes and also on the extension of filing date by the Indian Tax Department, how you can benefit out of it also. And also explaining about the new Finance Act 2020, the changes made thereof also, and the taxation benefit thereof. I think already we have covered the entire gamut of issues and things to be taken into consideration while opting for NPS and the tax benefit schemes also. I think, Chetan, you can unmute everybody so that people can start asking the questions. I'm not seeing any questions posted in the chat box. If you can also post the questions in the chat box. Otherwise, also you can raise your hands and also start asking the questions to the concerned panel of speakers. I think I'm not seeing any person posting. Okay, there's a question posted from Prashant. Can we get the details to share the contents of the same to the respective members or the respective staff of the respective organization. The presentations made by the speakers, the soft copies is available with the permission. Can we have a clarity on the same? Can we share the same to the participants?
So far as PFRD is concerned, we have no issue. We can share this.
Okay.
Yeah, we too have shared the deck and we're okay with sharing it with the audience.
Okay. In case something to be edited from your end, you can also edit and
Of course.
in the same, of course.
Yes.
Because you know that in FICCI in Kerala, we have all the affiliated chambers of commerce and trade associations in Kerala as affiliated bodies also. And besides the corporate and associate members also. So it will be really helpful. Normally what we do is that after the event, we share the recording of the event also and the conduct of the program and the short report of the program also, we share the presentations also. So that will be really helpful to disseminate the information to the various people who participated who could not also made available. There are people also who have joined this program to YouTube link also. So that definitely will be helpful.
So, in case the audience doesn't have any question, I would ask the audience a question if that's permitted.
Okay, you can definitely post a question here.
Yes. So my question is, and we have many corporates, right? I mean, we have given our perspective of features about NPS, the taxation features, about what we see employees need to do. We would be happy to actually get their perspective on what are the challenges that they face, or what is it that is coming in the way of making the employee enrollment a double digits, if not more.
Okay. I got your question. You also need to understand the peculiar scenario in Kerala also.
Okay.
Of course, PF is compulsory. That means many companies have already opted for PF, and at the time of employing a person, of course, PF is made mandatory also as per the requirement also. But in PS, it is voluntary to the respective employees whether he can choose or not. That is depending upon the consent of the employees. So what we find in Kerala scenario is that, of course, there are people who are already opting for many LIC scheme, pension schemes, and then NPS is also an additional factor. But we need to give a lot of awareness to the corporate level to the employees about the NPS scheme and what are the advantages, what are the benefits. So gradually, definitely, we will be able to get more and more people getting enrolled as NPS subscribers. Definitely, they will be take advantage of those things. Those companies who are already joined for NPS from the FICCI perspective also, there are a lot of people who have already joined NPS and definitely contributed the same also. So we need to give more publicity like what we have done now. I think that will help more corporates also to opt to NPS schemes to the respective employees side also.
Sure. Thank you.
Can I ask? Here I can add our PFRDA perspective to that.
Yes, sir.
Is that what Sanil told very rightly, that we have also observed in the onboarding part, that in many corporates, the payroll is outsourced.
Yes.
And when you tell about NPS, these people feel that is an extra administrative burden that they have to take.
Yes.
But only if they discuss with us, we can tell them what are the processes, how we have eased the processes to ensure that the onboarding will be very, very smooth. So I can tell you about CPSC, Central Public Sector Enterprises. A particular public sector enterprise who has joined recently, they had a approved superannuation fund. They changed over to NPS because they thought NPS is a far better proposition from tax point of view, from return point of view, from flexibility point of view. It's a far better proposition. They changed over, and within a month and a half's time, I believe we could shift close to 25,000 of their employees. It's not a small corporate I'm talking about. And the transition has been very smooth and almost effortless kind of thing. So if we can do for a 25,000 kind of employee based